I'll bring the Butte-Silver Bow Council of Commissioners Committee of the Whole meeting to order for Tuesday, December 10th, 2025. Can we please have a roll call?
One presiding, 9 present, 1 absent.
Okay, please let the record reflect that Commissioner Anderson and Commissioner Boyle are excused. Oh, 2 absent. Can you restate that just for the record?
There's 1 presiding, 9 present, 2 absent.
Okay, Commissioner Anderson and Commissioner Boyle are excused. Commissioner Walker, would you please lead us in the prayer and the pledge? Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item on tonight's agenda is any public comment on any items that's on tonight's agenda. If you are here to speak on the public hearing for communication 2025-576, I would ask that you just hold off until the actual public hearing so that we can make it an official part of the record. So this public comment on any items on the agenda would really pertain to Section 2, Communications 1 through 5. So if there's any member of the public that would like to speak on any of those items, now would be your opportunity to come to the podium. Mr. Barrett, please state your name and address for the record after pressing the button on the bottom. There you go. Welcome.
Mr. Chair, Evan Barrett, 807 West Silver. Frankly, I wondered if you were going to be taking any input or allowing any discussion, brief discussion, when item 3 comes up on the agenda. If you do, I'd rather speak at that time than this time.
Now's your opportunity, Mr. Barrett, as a member of the public, to speak on anything on tonight's agenda. I'm
asking, is 3 going to come up for at the later in the meeting?
Yes, it will, but that's not your communication.
I was asked to be here to make some comment on that. Well, okay. Thank you. The comment I want to make on the whole concept of the data center is I continue to research. I'm finding there's still a lot of unanswered questions. There's a lot of assertions and hypotheticals. Well, maybe this, maybe that. Somebody could do this and might do this. But it's very hard to see what the commitments are other than the commitment that Butte made to sell land, which I think was a premature decision in the first place. And we've discussed that at least twice before, that we weren't ready for that movement of selling 600 acres. And now we're going to wait till February. And I personally hope that they have reasons not to meet the February thing, so Butte could, again, see that it has its input. Now, what I do want to recommend is increased public process. The land was purchased with virtually no public process. And as we move forward, we should make sure we should have public hearings probably by the TED board out at Montana Connections, so they can get adequate input, so they can make a proper recommendation to you, and some hearing process here that allows the public to be the proper processes, notice of the meetings, plenty of publicity and notice of the meetings, a specific agenda for the meeting, and then, of course, ultimately minutes and full discussion at the meetings. I think saying that the council makes the final decision, so any comment before the council represents adequate public input, does not do justice to the provisions of the Montana Constitution that say that the citizenry has the right to participate in the public process prior to the decisions being made. And then you wait till the last second to take public input, you go 98% down the road and expect everybody to turn around and go back to the beginning of the road. We need to have adequate public process as we go down the road to make sure we don't make mistakes. I remain intrigued with the concept of a data center and the benefits it might bring to Butte. I still have many questions about whether the potential negatives of it have been adequately explored to the satisfaction of the citizenry. And I must say, the reaction I get on the streets of Butte, say, keep that up. We need to know more, and we need to do more as citizens. I think your citizens of Butte do not feel that they've had adequate process to this point, and we should work to achieve that. And we have two places to do it. Here is the last place. The TED board is the first place, and it should be proper public process, not just offhand comments and that type of thing. So I urge the council to adopt that approach to the proposed data center and ancillary activities. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Is there any other member of the public that would like to speak on any item that is on tonight's agenda? No. It's her communication. Yeah. Okay. Seeing none, for the report of the chair, I'll just keep moving on to the next section and get right into the public hearings. Section 1, bid openings, public hearings, and/or presentation. We do have a public hearing tonight. It's communication number 2025-576. James Ouellette, Safety and Health Coordinator, ADA Coordinator, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a public hearing for December 10th, 2025 for the purpose of considering adopting of the City County of Butte-Silver Bow ADA self-evaluation and transition plan. Mr. Ouellette. County Attorney Enruth, is there proof of publication?
Chairman Morgan, there's proof of publication.
Okay. Staff report, Mr. Ouellette.
Good evening, Commission. Thank you, Commissioner Morgan. All right, so we're here. A little bit about this ADA transition plan that we're going to present to you, a self-evaluation and transition plan. When I got hired here in June of 2023, so 2 years, oh, it can't be just 2 years ago. 2 years ago, wow. I started, I met with the chief executive and we started going over the requirements for the ADA under Title II. Something that we discovered early on that was missing was a self-evaluation and transition plan, which was designated in 1990 on the passing of the original ADA. It was obviously difficult realizing that we did not have that, but it was also very exciting because we got to start fresh. And the chief executive and I met frequently, and we met with our ADA advisory group, and we decided to do it now, right? Better late than never. So we put out an RFP to decide to do it with a consulting group. Why we chose to use a consulting group, that was also a discussion we had. I am safety and health and ADA coordinator, so the ADA is part of my job. I would have to take probably 3 to 5 years of just working on this plan, and as our consultants will tell you, it probably still wouldn't be good enough. That is why we needed professionals to come in here, because it is an extensive audit that is looking for the compliance with the Department of Justice and with the standards in the Americans with Disabilities Act. That's programs, services, and activities. And what you have tonight is that on July 1st, 2024, we entered into that agreement with the WT Group. They'll be presenting their findings to you here shortly. And they have went through all of our buildings, our facilities, sidewalks, programs, interviewed staff, talked to the community. We shared lots of laughs with them and even some tears. We had some very moving stories from this community. And I'll let them speak more on their experience within this community. But it has been one of the most rewarding and amazing professional experiences of my life. And to bring this towards you guys tonight is a great honor. And so I really hope you do consider it. As for next steps, after you do watch this presentation and hear the public hearing, comments from the public hearing, I will be presenting a resolution for you guys. That'll give you some more time to follow up, meet with me, ask me any questions, and then it'll come down to a vote once it goes through the resolution process. I'm also here to answer any questions tonight. Please feel free to ask me or our speakers from Chicago any questions as well. Finally, I would like to thank all of you, all of the commissioners, our chief executive, our county attorney's office, our ADA advisory group, all department heads within Butte-Silver, the community members who have engaged, the people with disabilities who have shared their stories, who have shaped this plan. It is really shaped by people with disabilities in our community. We are very grateful for that. And I think this is such a great example of what Butte-Silver does well. And this reflects what I know to be true about Butte, is that when we all come together and we have that shared purpose of serving the community, of creating a more accessible community where everyone belongs, we can all come together and do something really, really special and something really magical for our community and create a plan so that no one will ever have to feel like they don't belong here, right? Because Butte's such a wonderful place. We want everyone to enjoy what we get to enjoy every day. So I'll hand it over now to the professionals. So please, I'll let them introduce themselves, and they're going to talk to you and bring you through the presentation. But I am here for questions, so feel free to ask your questions at any time. Thank you so much, commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Ouellette. WT Group, welcome to the council meeting.
Thank you very much. And my name is John McGovern. I lead the accessibility practice at the WT Group, and with me is
Shelley Zuniga. I was the project manager for our work with Butte-Silver.
we have controls here somewhere, which you get to run. But before I start the presentation, I want to say that James sold himself short. It's been a pleasure to work with you, James, wherever you went. There you are. If he didn't have the answer to our questions, he got them right away for us. So his passion and commitment to this project were really evident to our staff. So we have a brief presentation, but feel free to stop us if you have a question about something you see, and of course you can ask questions afterwards. But thanks for time on the meeting tonight.
John, just for our listeners out there, can you just speak directly into that
Yes.
mic or as close as you can?
We'll do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Content, we'll just talk about ourselves a little bit, talk about the ADA requirements and how they apply to existing sites and new construction. There is a difference there, and it's an important difference to grasp. We'll talk about the transition plan. Shelley was the project manager here. She'll talk about the process that we use for that. We'll talk a little bit about the deliverables. We'll spend some time talking about the fiscal impact of the transition plan. And then we'll talk about some strategies in conclusion. And again, we invite your questions as we're going through this. So who are we? My name is John McGovern. I mentioned that earlier. I worked in local government. I started my career in Albuquerque, always responsible for programs and services for people with disabilities. I moved to Illinois, was always interested in the civil rights of people with disabilities. And I think we all know that as elected officials and as staff, we have a moral obligation to serve people who have a disability. Do we have a legal obligation, though? So I went to law school at night. So I'm basically a Parks and Rec guy with a law degree. And I graduated right about the time the ADA became law. So kind of right place at the right time for me. Shelley?
Shelley Zuniga. Similar path. I'm not a lawyer, but spent years working in public service for children and adults with disabilities through a cooperative agreement in Illinois. So worked with several different agencies left there and joined John in 2008 to do this work, and have traveled all over the country, and have truly, truly enjoyed being here in Butte. As James said, and I can second that, the community here has been phenomenal. We started our first trip with a picnic. I'm going to say it was in honor of us. It was in honor of the ADA, but it was pretty awesome to come the first week and be greeted by this wonderful picnic in one of your parks. So the community support and involvement is phenomenal here. So kudos to all of you.
So our background for both of us is in municipal parks and recreation, but in 2008 we realized a restroom in a village hall or city hall or county building is the same as a restroom in a community center. And so since then we've served about 700 communities from Connecticut to Washington State and Minnesota to Florida. So most of our work is out of state, and we were thrilled to be able to come back to Montana. Again, we had several years ago, actually about 10 years ago, done a series of projects for the city of Helena. So it was nice to be back here. So let me talk a little bit about the ADA requirements for existing sites. There was some discussion in Congress when the ADA was being debated about all existing sites have to be made accessible. That was pretty much a no-go from the beginning. That would have been impractical to do and far too expensive. So the compromise was every existing site has to be evaluated, and you have to know what the deficits at each site are. And then if work is occurring there at some point in the future, you already have the list and you know what to do. So that is really the basis for the access audit or self-evaluation requirement. The city county also has to create a transition plan. So a transition plan after you've evaluated facilities is basically a phased schedule of retrofits. There's no right or wrong way to do it. We'll talk a little bit more about the community engagement effort and the staff discussions that we had here, but we try to make the transition plan meet the uniqueness of each community. I mentioned community engagement. So the goal there, the Department of Justice says that each municipality, each county must engage the community in the process of developing the transition plan. So that's a really clear mandate, and in fact they say it twice. But it's not prescriptive. They don't tell you how to do it. So our goal in community engagement is to listen to your residents and see if they have a preferred order of retrofit. Our restrooms first, our parks first, our courts first. And again, here there's no right or wrong answer. And we had great feedback from the community. We'll talk about how that influenced our decisions as well. James mentioned Title II. So the ADA includes 4 key titles. Title II is the one that's important here. It applies to the 89,004 units of state and local government across the country. Just so you know, you're kind of an elite company. Probably not more than 25,000 units of state and local government have taken this step. So you are definitely on the cutting edge of communities, not just in Montana, but across the country. Title II is meant to be broad. It's a civil rights law, so it governs everything that Butte-Silver does. It governs policies. It governs programs that you offer. It governs facilities that you develop. It governs parks that you have as well. So it's intended to purposely encompass everything that you do. This meeting is a program that's addressed by Title II. So the opportunity for public comment is an opportunity for the public to come, and so that too is something that has to be accessible. One of the areas that the Department of Justice was very clear about was new sites. So if there is a new site, then the design and construction must fully comply with either the federal 2010 standards or Montana requirements or your own local requirements if those are more stringent. In our mind, when we look at a site, we always think access is a function of 3 things. Did the designer get it right? And if the designer got it right, did the contractor do it right? And if the contractor did it right and the designer got it right, then it's all on you. Is Butte-Silver staff, are you maintaining it right? So it's a combination of all 3 of those things. when we're at a site, we don't try to determine whether or not it was the architect or the contractor or a maintenance issue. Some of them are obvious and some of them are not. Audit and retrofitted existing sites, as I mentioned earlier, is the key for existing sites. You do have an obligation to go back and retrofit, but again, here from the Department of Justice perspective, you do the heavy lifting. You, with our help, can set priorities about which sites and which types of sites should be retrofit and in what order they should be retrofit. We already talked about the federal standards and Montana requirements, but we also use smart practices. So a good example of a smart practice is a power door opener. A power door opener at a building is not required, but it is much more efficient for not just people who have a disability, but for a staff member who's carrying in a bunch of supplies, or for a parent pushing a child or two in a carriage. So power door openers, although they're not required, are a good universal design option that provides a benefit to the entire community, not just people who have a disability. New construction, this is kind of a repeat of what I said, but anything new is defined as anything after March 15th of 2012. So we still see, I'm not going to give you the example that I would normally give you, but we still see new construction at every single client that we have that is wrong. Either the grab bars in the restroom are wrong, there's not a route to the brand new playground, the ramp is too steep. So some of those, like a playground not having a route to it, I think I'm going to say that's a design issue. Playground surface not being the right height, I'm going to say that's probably a maintenance issue. A ramp being too steep, I'm going to say that's probably a construction issue. So we do see a variety of types of errors when we see new sites. I would encourage you through this conversation, though, to not think that new sites are always going to be compliant. Like I said, the architect might have gotten it right, the contractor might have done it right, maintenance might be right, but if there's a failure somewhere in there, then you do have an issue to address down the road. Existing sites for program access. So I started to talk a little bit about this earlier when I called this meeting a program. So there are numerous court decisions that define what a program is, and it, of course, includes things that I sign up for, pay a fee. It meets on, what is it? It's Wednesday night at 7:30. And it lasts for 6 weeks. That is indeed a program. But sidewalks are a program. Playgrounds are a program. The opportunity to make public comment here is a program. So think broadly when you see the Department of Justice and the ADA talking about programs. It really means anything that you have felt is important enough to make available to the entire community. Therefore, it must also be accessible to the community. The third bullet point is perhaps counterintuitive. DOJ is really clear that not necessarily every existing site must be made accessible. So just a real simple example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If you have 10 playgrounds, do you think it's fair to make just one playground accessible? What's your vote? I see a no or two. Do you have to make all 10 accessible? Should, but do you have to? Probably not. So DOJ doesn't give you a ratio or a percentage. We're not the Department of Justice, but we're comfortable telling you that aiming for a minimum of 1 of every 3 of recurring assets is a fair start, knowing that in 2029 you'll replace something else and now you'll have 4 of 10 playgrounds accessible. New sites or unique sites like this building would have a higher priority in general because you don't have another building quite like this. The next slide dips a little bit into the process that Shelley and our team used.
So some of the faces out there are familiar. You may have seen me out and about. So I participated in all of the trips out here to conduct the evaluations of all the parks and facilities and sites of BSB. So what we do is literally look at every inch of the site, every door, every closet, every entry, the route into the building, the parking associated with the building. If it's a park, the route through the park to all of the amenities themselves. So It's a very, very detailed process. We use an app that was developed specifically for accessibility evaluations called BlueDag. So on the phone, we have checklists. I've been doing this 16 years and I can do it blindfolded, but I still use a checklist because I don't want to get complacent and think, just whip through it, because that's when you miss things. So I use checklists and we look at everything. And so we'll note if it's compliant or not compliant. So the reports that you got in the deliverables will show images where we saw deficits. So you'll see some verbiage as well as a couple of images so that you can go back to that site, into that location, and then recreate where that deficit is, if that's one that we're recommending you need to correct. We use simple tools. We use a digital level, a tape measure, a door gauge in our phone, so we can travel fairly light. For the public right-of-way audits, there's another, I love technology, another app off of a phone where we actually walked all of the miles of sidewalks using an iPhone that has LiDAR software, and it collects thousands of data points and then gets analyzed to determine where the deficits are within the public right-of-way system. So once those audits are complete, as John likes to say, it all goes in the cloud, wherever that is, and through the portals we analyze the data, create the reports, and then those final reports, the data in those get transferred into that final transition plan, and that's the meat and potatoes of what you want. That's your working document moving forward that shows you where your deficits are, what you need to correct, and then it's up to the staff to determine how do we marry that with our existing projects and get some of this work done over time.
So other jurisdictions have used some other factors to set their order of retrofit. I'm going to go through these pretty quickly, and some of these are pretty obvious. You're obviously trying to make the programs accessible, so that's a key part of this. You want to disperse access retrofits. You don't want accessible sites to only be located in a certain part of Silver Bow or Butte. You do want to address both unique sites and recurring sites. There is some guidance from the Department of Justice on how to do that, and we incorporate that into our recommendations. Stretched out over how many years? That's a huge question for every jurisdiction. We always encourage you to meet the mandate, but do so at a pace that is consistent with your own resources. Just like a master plan, things can change, and there may be opportunities for you to accelerate the pace, to blend transition plan work with other projects, or in some cases to slow the pace as well. So physical obstacles obviously is what we focused on for the transition plan. Our transition plan report also includes the retrofit or the method to remove the barrier there. We do give you a schedule. We tell you which phase we think it's in or which priority. And then we named the only responsible official on every single one of the pages in the transition plan, and that is James. Not required, but you included it in your RFP, wisely so, because you can't do a plan like this without having an idea of the cost. So we did provide cost references for buildings and parks as well. Deliverables.
So I did mention the site reports. So there will be individual site reports for each of the areas that we looked at. Some will be a few pages, some will be 100 pages. This building, I believe, is probably several hundred pages. Into that is the detail of what we saw, what the citation we referenced, what the recommendation is, and the images. Then the recommendation language only goes into the Excel transition plan. And then we also did a program and policy review, so we spent time interviewing all of the different departments in Butte to find out what kinds of requests for modification they've received and how they've addressed those. So there's a program and policy review report. We did conduct community engagement. We had 2 public meetings, as well as we disseminated a survey out to the community. So for those who can't make it to a public meeting, they had an opportunity to give feedback. So there's a report on that information. Another one was staff training. So we were out here and conducted a number of staff trainings, I think in 2 or 3 days' time. We talked ourselves out. And then the final report is kind of the synopsis of all of it. What standards were we using this against, some general recommendations and some strategies for moving forward with all of the data that we gave you.
And then it's the final report. A little bit about the costing. So I'm going to draw you to the bottom right number, the very large number. And we pointed this out in the final report, and I think it's important to highlight it here. You're not a flat community, and trails are a key part of what you provide. Out of that 34 million, 29 plus was trails. So an interesting thing about trails is that there's not a final and enforceable standard there. But trails are, let's go back to the definition of a program, trails are a program. So you do have to have some trails that are accessible. And you do have some trail segments that are accessible. You have some others that could be made accessible. So there are a variety of ways that you can approach this. If you're a skier, think about a green hill, a blue hill, and a double black diamond hill. It's the same kind of a concept. If you think trails are important, which I think you do, then at some point you're going to have to increase the number of green hills or green trails that you have. But for phases 1, 2, and 3, your overall total came in at a shade under $10 million, which for a community your size with the sites that we saw is comparable to what we would see in a flatland city-county combination. We do have an option category 2 that's pushing 16 million, and then smart practices at 9 million. So the option category are things that we saw that are not compliant, but we don't think you have to do them because of the program access test or because they may be technically infeasible. Smart practices are, go back to the power door opener example, things that aren't not part of the code, but that could make a site more accessible. It's okay. You have some old buildings, so that's another factor as well. I'm getting a giggle from the guy at the camera. And this, again, is typical, whether we're in New Jersey or Connecticut or Arizona or here, older buildings tend to chew up a larger percentage of your retrofit costs. Ironically, an older building may be more difficult to make accessible. And so making changes there may be technically infeasible. We talked about a couple of options that you already have in place that utilize technology to give a guided tour of a site that is old and can't be made physically accessible. And same for sidewalks. Sidewalks are only recently final and enforceable in late 2024. But sidewalks have many, many, many exceptions in them. So think San Francisco, or think some of your own sidewalks. You do not have to make a sidewalk be flatter than the street slope that it serves. So some of your sidewalks are going to be difficult to make accessible. Some strategies, you've done this already. We urge you to continue this, build and maintain strong relationships with the disability advocacy groups. That's been really important in every community that we've served, and we've seen that come to play here. Second bullet point is equally important. Every year, make sure you do fund and implement some transition plan recommendations. Don't take a holiday and not do transition plan work. That brings you a visit from somebody who wants to talk about enforcement. Third bullet point I think is really important. My parents told me you shouldn't brag about what you're doing, but this is a time to brag about what you're doing. You have a lot of, I think, pretty significant accessibility and engagement accomplishments with the communities of people with disabilities here. And I think it's important to make everybody aware that that's part of your culture and you want to continue that. And last but not least, exceed the minimum requirements. The demographic wave is here. By 2030, there will be more people over 65 than under 18 for the first time in history in every one of the states, including Montana. And that's important because if we polled all of us here, our incidence of disability would be 13 to 14%. For people over 65, it's a whopping 45%. So as you age, you're going to have more requests from people who have a mobility impairment or other disabilities to use city, county facilities. So start planning for that now. Don't just get by with the one accessible parking stall in a parking lot. Put a second one in there even if you don't have to. It'll pay off and when you start getting requests in 2029 and 2030. Picture time.
So just a quick few examples of the things that we saw and the type of things we're looking at. So the way the standards are laid out, there's scoping requirements, which is telling you how many of a thing you need to have. And then the second part of it is, what does it look like if you have it? So the example here are accessible parking stalls. There's a requirement that the slope in the stalls and access aisle not be in excess of 2.08, which is considered level in the ADA world. 0 isn't level, you do need drainage. So this is just showing an image of some slopes that are slightly higher. The signage has a requirement to be mounted at 60 inches to the bottom of the sign. So this is the example of what you're going to see in the reports. You'll see a close-up image of the measuring tool and then a step-back image so you can recreate that. I believe that's at the animal control. Oh, geez. Whoa, whoa. Sorry. Accessible routes. An accessible route is defined as a 36-inch wide path with a running slope not greater than 5% and a cross slope not greater than 2.08 with changes in level not greater than 1/4 of an inch and gaps not greater than 1/2 an inch. So as we walk through the sites, we're looking for all of those things all at once. So here, and again, because of the climate here, same with Chicago, the freeze and the thaw and everything we have, your surfaces are always going to need constant maintenance. So we look for those cracks and gaps that might be an impediment to or a barrier to travel. We're looking for where maybe your panels are sinking and your cross or running slopes are exceeding what they should be. Oh, wrong way. Doggone it. I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, there we go. Okay. Quick. Whoop, there we go. Parks, we're looking for accessible routes to the amenities. So the gravel or pea gravel surface would not be considered an accessible surface. Amenities in the parks, a certain percentage of them should be on an accessible route and have some adjacent space. The bench itself doesn't necessarily have to be accessible, but I should be able to get to it if I use a mobility device and sit next to my friend who I'm having a picnic with. Playgrounds have a lot of different requirements. One is there a route to it? John used that example earlier. There should be an accessible route to the edge of the playground. The surface should be an accessible surface, so either that poured in place solid surfacing or engineered wood fiber, as long as it's a certified surface and maintained. That's the hard part. The loose fill surfaces need to be maintained level, and then the structures themselves need to have a certain number of elements accessible, as well as the ground level components. So that one on the left obviously has the pea gravel, which isn't accessible. The one on the right, the two surfaces are accessible, but the loose fill needs to be maintained up level with the other surface so that there's not a drop to the loose fill. Oh, I'm nervous now. Okay. Restrooms, we're looking at, is there an accessible stall? What does the accessible stall look like? The grab bars have a very specific placement and height. The toilet paper dispenser, the doors, where the toilet is placed. It can't be too far from the wall. If I don't have trunk strength and I slip and fall, that dimension there is specific so that I don't fall and get trapped. Again, the toilet paper dispenser location, if I'm leaning too far forward, again, the risk of falling. Operable parts need to be in reach range. They need to be usable without a tight pinch or grasp. So lots of different aspects that we look at in a restroom. The public right-of-way data is all GIS-based and LiDAR, so you'll get these types of reports. There'll be verbiage as well, but this is the kind of image you'll see, and it's color-coded based on the severity of the barriers. So that's the kind of data that I collected as I was walking through town with my phone up in front of me. What's next, John?
What's next? We hope the commission will adopt the report following your usual procedures to review and adopt such a thing. I'll repeat the point about being sure to annually budget for and implement the work. That's just really, really critical. And I'm going to say that this way on purpose, to urge staff to continue implementation. Like I said, you have a lot of access and engagement successes within your operations. So we're not trying to tell you to get going and get busy on it. We're trying to tell you to continue what you're doing and use our plan as a guideline. Can we answer your questions?
Thank you very much for that very informative report. I think it's going to be a great opportunity for this community to just keep investing in itself as we go forward. Is there any questions that the commissioners have for the WT group? Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Thank you, folks, for coming. I certainly appreciate what you're doing for these folks out here. And
Thank
I'm
you.
sure they all do too, because we're way behind. No matter if we're at the beginning of the list or not, we're still all way behind. I just got a couple clarification questions. I was in the delivery business for over 3 decades. I've delivered 150-year-old buildings to recently built buildings. And I was just curious, because like you said, even some of our newer buildings aren't being built in compliance. And I was just curious on how this is happening and what kind of authority do you have to have them go back and do it? Or is it on the honor system, or why does this happen?
I'll start at the
John.
back, if that's all right, Commissioner. I think you have a lot of authority. If I'm a vendor or a contractor here in Butte-Silver, and you call me even after the project is over and you say, hey, we've had an audit at the site and we've found a couple things that are not compliant, I want your business for the next 5 years, 10 years. I'm going to come back and help you figure out how to solve the problem that exists at the site. I do think that there's a logical explanation for it, though. The 2010 standards were built on the earlier 1991 standards that did not address park and recreation assets at all. So we often see errors at pools, playgrounds, sports fields. In fact, I think your single most expensive access deficit is at sports fields. And I think that's because it's new. It was not unusual if this table was a park to put things in the table, whether it was a playground or sports fields, and then just assume that we were all going to go across the grass to get to that asset. But we know now that dirt and grass and crushed stone are never really an accessible surface. So I think it's taken some time for the design community to catch up with that, and perhaps even for the construction community, but they're pretty close to there. We do see, like I said, at every one of our clients, a new construction project that's wrong. But I'd say that we see fewer today than we did 10 years ago.
Follow-up, Commissioner Callahan. Oh,
If I could just follow up on that real quick. And definitely there have been some of our circumstances where the architects were reading the wrong standard. They're looking at the wrong year, the wrong standard, the wrong code, or they didn't look into the code deep enough to see where the measure is to. So we had a big job where every single one of the grab bars in the restrooms, and there were about 25 of them, were wrong. Very clearly in the standards, the measure is to the top of the grab bar, but they mounted them all on center at the highest measure. So they were all a ½ an inch off. So sometimes it's misunderstanding the standard or looking at the wrong standard, and that's truly the unfortunate part when they're getting it wrong from the get-go because they're not referencing the correct standard.
follow-up, Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you. So say this happens, and like you said, you would be our best customer. But is it up to us to be able to catch this? Is it our responsibility before this building is open to the public to figure these things out? Or whose responsibility is it for, have these people be in compliance?
I wouldn't say it the way you said it, Commissioner, but certainly in your own plan review process, in your own monitoring of how the development of a new site is going, your staff are going to be integral to the process of catching it. I do think there's a piece of this that belongs in the bidding process too. I think in interviews for architects and engineers and landscape architects and contractors, have them explain in some detail what the accessibility features at this site are and how they comply with the standards. So it's a little bit of both. I wouldn't say the obligation rests solely on you, because certainly if I'm a contractor, I'm obliged to do it the right way the first time.
Follow-up, Commissioner
One more.
Callahan.
So in the example you've talked about the half inch, I've heard of places this has happened. So when they have to go back and adjust that, does the architect have to fork the cost, or they just do a change order and the taxpayer or somebody else turns around and gets stuck with the bill?
Commissioner Callahan, you're going to guess my answer, but I'm going to say it depends. You know, if you still have the retainage, then you're in a stronger position. If it's a vendor that has done work with you for 10 years and wants to do it for another 10 years, you're in a stronger position. If it's somebody from out of state that came in, gave you the low bid and left town, then that's not as strong a position. So it really depends on the project and how difficult the retrofit or the correction would be.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Healy and then Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Chair Morgan. I have a question just from an observation. There's an alley that's not paved, and there's a woman with her very disabled son, and I watch her trying to push the wheelchair down. They did put gravel on it, but it still sinks because when the ground's wet, it sinks. And where she has to meet the school bus. How do you approach that? I don't even know where to start.
John.
A lot of jurisdictions have you request the modification and we will attempt to make it, in particular with regard to right-of-way assets. So I would include an alley there. We know from our own experience, and I'm sure Montana DOT uses the same scale, that there are certain size stones in crushed gravel that can be made to be an accessible surface, but many are not. We generally recommend to a jurisdiction that if you're going to use crushed stone, that every single stone has to be smaller than 1/4 of an inch, and it has to be compacted. If they're larger than that, they're not going to be a good surface from an accessibility perspective.
Commissioner Healy.
So, thank you. So would I start with James then and have him come look at it? That's what I'm saying. I don't know where to start.
I think this is
This
out of our bailiwick.
Chief Executive Gallagher.
We'll pass it on to the chief executive.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan, Commissioners. Commissioner Healy, that would be a report to us, and so we would do an assessment of that. So, I mean, we, just like our sidewalks, everything like that, it would be a report to us, and we would try to, address what we could there. But what we're addressing here is public facilities that was
Okay.
assessed here, and so,
Okay.
but when it's a specific issue, you'd want to come to us
Okay.
during that time.
Thank you.
John, I would just have a question kind of in regards to that with reasonable accommodation would have to come in on a lot of these projects. I would think that, if there was a way to make it more accessible that was still feasibly acceptable, that would come in. If it was something that wasn't able to be accessible because of the true cost, what's the leeway on that?
We talked about cost. We had a meeting with leadership staff today. So there is a concept of undue burden. So if I come to you and ask for a reasonable modification, you do not have to do it if it's an undue burden. So undue burden is undue economic burden, undue administrative burden, which basically means you can't find the expertise to do what we've asked you to do. and then fundamental alteration in the nature of the program or service. Let me start with that one, and then I'll get to economics. If you have a sand volleyball court, and I'm a mobility device user, and I want to play, and I come in and I ask to have the sand volleyball court paved, could you do it? Is it a simple enough task? It is. But that fundamentally changes sand volleyball to asphalt volleyball. So I would say that that's a fundamental alteration. The economic one is a little more tricky, in part, well, candidly, because of your size. Your operating budget is north of 150 million. So let's just assume that at any given time you have 8 positions open and you have $5,000 in salary savings for each position. 8 times 5 is 40,000. That's 40,000 that you could redirect towards the making of a reasonable modification. So the Department of Justice cautions jurisdictions to don't look at the program that the request is being made about, don't look at the department that that program is in, but instead look at the entire operating budget for the jurisdiction. So that's a tough one to win that argument.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I was going to call on James. I want to thank you guys for all of your hard work, and also James as well. You really opened my eyes to things that I didn't see, I didn't notice. And it's pretty shocking when you realize how kind of ignorant you are to the needs of others. And so I want to thank you for bringing that to the forefront. I want to thank James for bringing that to the forefront. It's been really wonderful to watch the process. I'm really excited about the transition plan and the implementation plan. So I wanted James to talk a little bit about the implementation plan if he could, and just to clarify that this transition plan is for Butte-Silver Bow properties. It's not for us to make private businesses to conform to the transition plan that we have. And then maybe just tell us a little bit about your vision for the implementation plan, and if you have maybe any ideas so far about what your top 3 maybe priorities would be.
James.
Thank you, Commissioner Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Morgan, and thank you, Commissioner Shea. Yeah, so for that answer, if you guys have any questions, you can always reach out to me. And if you, so again, I have to stay within Title II because I'm a Title II ADA coordinator, so like Commissioner Shea said. But a lot of times we do get grievances. There's an online reporting system in Title II. It outlines how that works. They all come through me. And what happens is when I view it, I can then forward them on to, say, Ability Montana, who then can handle a private matter. And I can direct them that way, and for an advocacy group to take over things that are out of my scope. So always feel free to contact me, and if I can't give you the answer, I can find someone that can get you the answer anytime. And as for implementation, so we have a few steps. Once it's going to be passed, we are going to break these down into departments. We're going to talk with the department directors, and we're going to see a lot of those low-hanging fruits. And once you look at the ADA transition plan, you'll see a lot of $0 costs. For example, I just mentioned something called the grievance procedure. One of their recommendations is actually changing that name. The ADA uses the word grievance, so we adopted the word grievance. But they say, make something that seems like it's a solution-based, that it's less adversarial. Now, that's not going to take any amount of money, but there's many things like that. Looking at our policies, our ordinances, our programs from an administrative spot, whether that's doing staff trainings, that could help that. So there's a lot of those $0 ones. Then working with the chief executive and the directors, again, I can just make recommendations and provide the information, but this is an active and a live plan. And one of the great check and balances that I have for the exception, or not for the exception, I want to get there, Well, I'll just have to wait in anticipation until I figure it out. I'm sorry. Alongside the chief executive and my boss, Director Worm, and the community, we have in ordinance that ADA advisory committee that chaired by Ms. Cassie Wick. I have to report to them on our updates. I have to provide updates where we are, what projects we're working on, and then from those committees, I have to write a report and deliver it to the chief executive. So the chief executive will be getting reports as well as the ADA advisory committee also asking me for updates. So this is going to be very much alive and well. If you read the report, the WT group so thankfully put my name on every single page with my phone number. So I'm very thankful for that. Oh, on my North Dakota address. But yeah, so that's a little bit about the implementation. And so our goals is to kind of work at this. You can't get to wonderful without passing through all right. And so those are some things that we got to work on step by step. And I'm committed to putting in that work. And I know Butte-Silver employees and our chief executive and the council of commissioners also share that as well.
Commissioner Shea, any follow-up? No. Chief Executive Gallagher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan and Commissioner Shea. I just wanted to answer to kind of the priorities. We'll have to establish a budget that is addressing some of those, although low-hanging fruit, but we also are going to have some high-priority initiatives that are going to cost. And so we're going to have to put budget authority into those and work on an implementation plan. You know, I was talking with the WT group. It's kind of a, you know, I hate to say it's going to take 20 years, but at the, you know, how many deficiencies and improvements that we need to make, it's going to take that time. But we'll sit down and we'll establish resources that we need to do and what are the highest priorities of what those are going to be. So that's going to take some time as we go through our budget process and establish those, working with our different directors. I know our of course, Public Works will be part of it, but as you've heard, a lot of it is through Parks and Recreation. And so we'll be working a lot. I think Director Frederickson said this is the Parks Plan, or transition plan. But I think that this is the first step, and it shows a commitment to do this. Now the next is the implementation, so we'll have to go through that. But we're going to have to establish budget to put towards that.
On the question, Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Just on that, James, you can answer it. I guess anybody could answer this, and it might seem silly, but just within that dollar amount, is that something that, like the phase 1 through 3 was $9.6 million bucks, the overall total being 34.9. Is that something that includes like all of the labor? Is that all encumbersome, or is that just specifically what we see as updates, or does that include, you know, the RFP processes, the contractors, all of that?
It's typically...
John, can you just go yep.
My mistake. Thank you. It's typically the cost of the materials and supplies, so it doesn't include labor costs. There was mention about the low-hanging fruit. In the transition plan, you'll see that it just says staff time, but typically the other types of projects don't include that.
Follow-up, Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Thank you, and thank you, James. I know there are many of us in the community, as Commissioner Shea alluded to, that are quite ignorant to the things that we cannot see. And so I just very much appreciate you bringing this to light. I know that many people will benefit from this. And, you know, this could be any single one of us that will need something like this tomorrow. So I just hope we all consider that moving forward. So thank you.
Mr. Ouellette, I just want to ask you a quick question. Refresh my memory. Did you have anything in this year's budget that would address any of these particular items to get that ball rolling?
Yeah, so there's the really great thing is that when we started with this transition plan, for example, this transition plan includes the courthouse bathrooms pre-remodel. So when we go through that, there are already things that we can be checking off. There are things that Zane and I, Karen Burns' department have already been addressing with as we're moving along. So we didn't just put everything on hold. So right now I can't really speak towards that budget, and I can give that back to the chief executive. But in all of our projects, especially the new ones moving forward, they're going to be compliant within the ADA. And as well, and I just want to mention this also really quick as a funding source, I work with the Community Development Department very close with Karen Burns and DOT. They have some really great grants out there, and we are putting in a lot of time to get those grant applications together and submitting them. So there are opportunities outside of just the operations budget, but I can give that back to the Chief Executive.
Okay. Chief Executive Gallagher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Just a quick, we can address some of these within our capital improvement plan as well. So some of these things can be built into the things that need to be done that have ADA and the transition plan affected within them.
Okay. Any other follow-up from the commissioners? Oh, Commissioner O'Leary.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I think this question is for John and Shelley. Appreciate you both coming up here and making this presentation. I'll reiterate the same appreciation the rest of the commissioners have said. A couple quick questions that are, I think, related to each other. You brought up, you said the word technical infeasibility, and I'm assuming that that has a legal definition of some sort, and I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about that and in the context of our community.
It does. It's well defined in the Title II regulation and then amplified in the design standards themselves. So technical feasibility applies in two types of environments. One is a building. So I'll just use this building as an example to make the point. So none of this is feasible in itself. But if you were going to turn this into office space and you wanted to put a bathroom in that corner, and you had to enlarge it, and that is a load-bearing wall, then you would not have to make it meet the technical dimensions for an accessible restroom. If you have to alter a load-bearing wall or structure, then it's technically infeasible. Outdoors, if you have naturally occurring steep terrain or boggy terrain, then you do not have to meet the technical requirements either. So it's a limiting factor. We would usually recommend that if you're doing work in 2028, that either your architect or a structural engineer talk to you about the building at half of this, and a landscape architect or a civil engineer talk to you about the exterior assets.
Follow-up, Commissioner O'Leary.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Appreciate that. And you know, you also brought up the historic nature of our community, and of course, many of our buildings are historic in nature. It's very hard to modify them without messing with the way that they look, and wondering if you could just speak to how we should think about that, what our approach should be.
Yes, historic sites are not exempt, so historic sites do have to be evaluated, but you are under no obligation to remove the barriers if the state historic preservation officer says doing so would threaten or destroy the historic significance of the site. So I'll use a Chicago example to show you that this is not a mandate, it's more permissive. The Chicago Bears and the Chicago Park District wanted more luxury boxes at Soldier Field, so they changed it. It was on the historic register, and they put what looks like a flying saucer on top of it, and they got more revenue out of that. So there are ways that you can do this. They did keep the columns in the front of Soldier Field, so those still remain on the historic register. So this is really an issue to bring up with the state historic preservation officer.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right. Well, seeing none from the commission, at this time, I would just open for the public hearing for any proponents. If there's any member of the public that would like to speak as a proponent for this, now would be your opportunity.
Thank you.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Cassie Wick, 820 West Mercury Street, District 10. and I'm an advocate at Ability Montana. I want to thank everyone who made this plan happen. It's been really special to be part of this and to hear these voices. So I'm here today in strong support of the ADA transition plan and respectfully urge you to approve it. The Americans with Disabilities Act was passed in 1990, 35 years ago. It was a landmark civil rights law intended to ensure that people with disabilities can participate fully in our communities. But while the ADA established the rights, it did not automatically build the infrastructure. Communities across the country, including ours, have spent decades trying to catch up. Many of the barriers people face today, broken sidewalks, inaccessible buildings, unsafe crossings, should have been resolved long ago. And that's why this ADA transition plan is so important. This plan offers a clear, actionable roadmap for identifying barriers, prioritizing improvements, and holding ourselves accountable for progress. It gives Butte-Silver Bow the opportunity to move from simply reacting to accessibility issues to strategically planning for safety, independence, and inclusion. For many people with disabilities, simply leaving the house requires extensive planning. They must consider whether sidewalks are passable, whether curb ramps exist, whether they can safely cross a street, whether there's a usable restroom, or whether they can open a door to enter the building. That level of daily stress just to participate in community life is something many people don't have to think about. When we build a community where that stress is reduced or removed, everyone benefits. We create a place where people feel welcome, supported, and connected. This is how community is built. Approving this plan is a meaningful step toward fulfilling the promise of the ADA and ensuring Butte-Silver Bow is a place where people of all ages and all abilities can move freely and safely. I urge you to adopt the ADA transition plan and support the ongoing work to create more accessible, inclusive communities for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wick. Any other proponents? You got it. Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record. Take your time.
Hi, my name is Lucy Galeris. My address is 15 Sawmill Gulch, Butte, Montana. I urge you to do this transition plan because it's the right thing to do, and I would like to participate in my community just like everybody else without mom and dad having to follow me around all the time, because that's what currently is happening. Because the sidewalks suck and we need to fix that, please. As someone who can't drive. And as some of the commissioners know, I'm a college student and I want to be able to do all the things college students want to do. And those things don't involve your parents following you around to do them. So the transition plan would allow me to participate fully and feel safe in my community to get around independently in this lovely wheelchair that I have. And right now that's not possible or safe. And so having this transition plan will allow that to be possible and safe. As well as for everybody else who aren't college students, be able to fully participate in their communities as they want to and need to. And those of us who might not have a family who's willing to drive us at 7:30 at night and pick us up at 9 p.m. To such things as this. So it's very important that we get some of these things done so that I can get around Butte whenever I want and can participate in all activities and programs the all-important word. So please do that, please.
Thank you very much.
Is going to swing in behind you.
Lots of traffic tonight.
Welcome to the meeting. This is for proponents. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Alice Deshay at 1900 McKinley Avenue. I'm in District 6. I'm here to ask for your support of the ADA transition plan and ask you to adopt the plan. It will do nothing but make Butte a more inclusive place for everyone. Accessibility is an invitation for all voices to be heard and included in our community. Butte is a lovely melting pot of all nations. Please consider those with disabilities as part of that great melting pot that is Butte, Montana. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments. Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Suzanne Ashby at 121 Fleece Drive, and my district is number 1. I am here today to express my very strong support for Butte-Silver Bow ADA transition plan. This plan is a vital step towards making this community accessible to all residents and visitors, including people with disabilities, older adults, and families. I hope you approve this plan. It'd be great for Butte's community. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Michelle Lewis. My address is 3400 Hill Avenue, number 101. Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. I reside in District 6. Mr. Fisher, you are my commissioner. I'm here tonight to express my strong support and ask you to adopt the ADA transition plan. I have come before this commission in the past, asking for greater access to my community. Thank you for hearing my plea on those occasions. Once again, I am asking for greater access. You have before you a comprehensive blueprint to this endeavor. I'm so excited that Silver Bow County has this opportunity to bring forward the tenets of the Americans with Disabilities Act enacted over 30 years ago. Adopting this plan puts Butte-Silver Bow on the map as a leader of counties in creating inclusive communities where all citizens have greater access to food, amenities, and community events, a place where all are welcome. We will be more accessible to tourists and visitors, helping our businesses thrive and increase the access, safety, and overall well-being of the citizens throughout the county. Accessible communities are thriving communities. With this plan, the future is accessible. So please say yes and adopt this transition plan. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Heather Raymond, 665 South Idaho. Eric Megas is my commissioner. I am here to support the ADA transition plan. I think it is good for the Butte to have a plan to the best community for everyone. Please support the plan. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for the comments. I would ask for a second call for any proponents. Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
Dave Hutchins, 529 South Colorado. I'm here in support of the transition plan. I really appreciate that this inventory's been done. I think it's really important that we share everything we have, the shared infrastructure, our amenities with the entire community. I think it benefits all of us, though, in addition. You know, we heard the example about the push-button doors and things like the cutouts on the sidewalks. It's essential for the folks in wheelchairs, but also improves life for children, for those on bicycles, for people with shopping carts, or kids in strollers. So I think every example you look at with these improvements, they're going to benefit all of us. And I just want to make one quick point that I think maybe is outside of the scope of this inventory and transition plan, but I think the biggest barrier that I see day to day is snow removal on our sidewalks. I think that's a low-hanging fruit that this body could help encourage enforcement and the programs that are helping neighbors help neighbors with snow removal. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Chair Morgan, members of the council. For the record, Clayton Elliott, E-L-L-I-O-T-T. I reside at 2802 State Street. I have the distinct pleasure to be represented by Commissioner Shea in this body. Want to rise as a proponent today for the transition plan. My professional career has the gift to take me around the state and really has given me an understanding of the importance that a welcoming, safe, and accessible community provides for the economic growth and opportunity. I'm excited that Butte-Silver Bow can be a leader in that effort in the state of Montana. Certainly better is always possible, and that's what the spirit of this transition plan is. I've had the opportunity, as many of you know, to experience this process from a firsthand perspective, but also had the opportunity when I moved to Butte to see my community through an entirely different lens. My roommate and friend who I moved to town with, and this speaks to Commissioner Thatcher's perspective or comment earlier about each and every one of us, our lives can change in one day. And Abigail St. Lawrence was my roommate, and I actually have a letter here to read on behalf of her. She had a stroke. I was in the kitchen with her when she had that stroke, and it was a tremendous experience to see this community through the lens of a person with disabilities. I'm going to be brief. I do this professionally, and I know that reading a long letter isn't something that you need to do on an evening like this. So I'll submit that in writing to you. But Ms. St. Lawrence says, during my time in Butte, I was able to work in my therapy and both at home in St. James. The therapists at St. James were excellent to work with, but Uptown Butte has steep stairs everywhere, and I do mean everywhere. My Queen Anne house on Excelsior was exquisite, but after my stroke, I had a whole new appreciation for going up and down stairs, even within the house itself. I'm confident Butte's on its way to becoming a great ADA compliant community in Montana, and I look forward to seeing Butte-Silver Bow. What Butte-Silver Bow does when I go back to Butte for things like the fabled St. Patrick's Day and Folk Festival. Now I do live in Great Falls, but I still have so many friends in Butte. I look forward to seeing what you do with the ADA transition plan. Thanks so much for letting me share my experience with you as commissioner. So with that, appreciate the work that's gone into this, appreciate the transition plan, and ask for you to support it. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you both for your comments. Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is Melanie Ray Wendt. I am of 1415 Utah Avenue, Butte, Montana, and I am speaking to passionately ask you to pursue this transit plan or transformation plan. I am not coming to you as a politician or as a professional in this regards in any aspect. I am coming to you as an artist and as a very, very proud fifth-generation Butte girl. I myself was very ignorant to the struggles until I had the pleasure of working with James, and we have worked at the Covelight Theater on quite a few productions together. And as many of you know, that is a beautiful example of Butte history, of Butte culture, of Butte architecture, and it's not very compliant whatsoever. We have the distinct pleasure of having free movies every Wednesday night, and I was able to run those for a while. And after speaking with James and just hearing about some of the easy things we can implement to make our city a lot more accessible for people, I threw on subtitles on the movies. And the amount of people that came up to me after the fact and said, I didn't know how helpful that could be. I didn't know that I needed that. there are so many simple things that we can do as a city to make our art, our history, our culture, our usness so much more approachable and accessible to everybody, to our community members, to tourists, to people who want to come be part of our community. There are so many things that we can do to help make us, our culture, accessible. So I strongly urge you to adopt this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Chairman, Council. Braden Heyer, 1100 Steel Street. I come before you with two perspectives. One as a business owner. My wife and I run Black Dog Creamery, and I believe no one should have limited access to ice cream. And secondly, I come before you as a father of two wonderful daughters that are still very small, riding bikes, and another that we push around in a stroller. And one of the stark things I realized moving to Butte, Montana, is that it was unsafe to walk around just our neighborhood, not alone uptown. Unfortunately, with the sidewalks, and we on a few occasions have had to go out into the road with our stroller in order to go around to more accessible right-of-way. And I think it's unfortunate, but I think it's correctable. And I appreciate the audience here today to be able to take in this transition plan, and I would encourage its adoption for the safety of my children, for future children, for the aging population, those with disabilities. And I greatly appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, Evan Barrett, 807 West Silver. You may have noticed me kind of gimp up here a little bit. I'm having, just a reminder, you know, and by the way, I want to compliment each of you on your commitment to public service. This is emblematic of what your public service really is all about. And it is about serving all of Butte. And this reminder you've heard from several people, which is this isn't now people about everybody who have people that have access challenges now. It's about us all. I just had the experience of about 3 months of having to find handicap parking and having to find ways where there are no stairs. How do I get places because of knee surgery that I had? So we're all close to that. Every citizen, every voter of Butte is in need of a good plan such as Butte will have by following this. And I urge you to move it forward. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments. Third and final call for proponents. Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Jack Roscoe. I am actually a visitor from over in Whitehall, so I live on the Whitetail Road. But I want to emphasize how important it is to also include the visitors. Even though I live in a different town, I come over to Butte quite often. I work with Ability Montana, and I want to thank all of you tonight for taking the time to listen to us and the proponent commenters. And thank you guys. Thank you, Shelley. Thank you, John. Thank you, James.
Thank you for your comments. Any other proponents? Okay, seeing none at this time, I would move to any opponents. First call for opponents on this communication for the public hearing. Second call for opponents. Third and final call for opponents. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing for communication 2025-576. Thank you all for your time tonight. Moving on to section 2, communications. Communication 2025-249. Patty and Chris Solmonson requesting Council of Commissioners approval to purchase a portion of land owned by Butte-Silver Bow, which is adjacent to their property located at 17 Tullamore Street. We'll continue to hold this in abeyance pending a report back from the Land Sales Committee. Number 2, communication 2025-520. William F. McGinnis, 807 North Montana Street, Butte, Montana, requesting Council Commissioners authorization to purchase property on parcel number 00019055650. We did take action on this communication last week, Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to place on file communication number 2025-520 and cross-reference with communication number 2025-582.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded to place communication 2025-520 on file and cross-reference with 2025-582. Is there anything on the question? Would the council please vote? Commissioner O'Leary? Maybe? Okay, would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
10 yea, 0 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 3, communication 2025-546. Sarah Bordoon, Butte, Montana, requesting council commissioners to answer some questions from October 16th, 2025 public forum Beyond the Boom on November 12th, 2025 regarding the impacts of the data center that may be coming to Butte, Montana. Before I turn this back over to Ms. Bordoon for her, as it is her communication to make comments on, Ms. Bordoon, you did come before us a couple weeks ago with some additional questions, and staff did give us some of those, or they did give us those responses back. So just in regular forum, I'm just going to take the time and read through the responses as they were given to me. I'm not here to bore anybody, but I'm just keeping up with the procedures that we've started in the past. So, staff response to the November 25th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting. Ms. Bordoon asked, is the state of Montana property tax for data centers a 0.89% flat rate? And is there a depreciation of assets over time? How is Atlas Power taxed? And how will they be taxed with their planned expansion? Staff response, A, the Class 17 property classification, which applies to data centers, is taxed at 0.9 of the market value. Market value is assessed each year by the Montana Department of Revenue. C, and then there is a web link attached, and these responses will be attached to tonight's minutes as well. B, Atlas Power is located in the South Butte Targeted Economic Development District, TED. The TED allows Butte-Silver to collect a portion of their 0.9% taxes. This is not a separate tax. The taxes are then used for improvements in the district at the discretion of the district, which means it needs to be approved from the district's board of directors and the council of commissioners. The usage must be in accordance with the programs of the district. For example, taxes collected from Atlas Power and other users in the district were recently used to rebuild the North Parkmount Avenue, rebuilding the street, curb, gutters, sidewalks, etc. C, Atlas Power's equipment will never depreciate to zero because their assets, their servers are constantly being replaced as they're being used. If they depreciated to zero, this would mean that they're likely out of business. D, Atlas Power's planned expansion will need to be permitted appropriately, and the expansion will then need to be assessed by the Montana Department of Revenue. Question number 2, Ms. Bordoon, can you explain how taxation of the Sabi data center would work inside and outside the Montana Connections Targeted Economic Development District? The answer, Montana Connections Targeted Economic Development District is a district that allows a portion of the 0.9% tax rate to be collected by the district. This is not a separate tax. The taxes are then used for improvements in the district at the discretion of the district, which means it needs to be approved from the district's board of directors and the council of commissioners. The usage must also be in accordance with the programs of the district. For example, taxes collected from businesses in the MC TED can be used to improve infrastructure on any property within the district. The district can agree to a remittance agreement to return a portion of the increment collected to all taxing jurisdictions. If Sabi data centers were to locate outside of the MTED, these taxes could not be collected by the district. Number 3, Ms. Bordoon, can the MC TED board put a water contract in place with Sabi? Answer, yes. All users of the Silver Lake water system must enter into an agreement with Butte-Silver for usage of the water. Butte-Silver is the owner of the water rights and is the driver for these contracts. Number 4, Ms. Bordoon, where does Atlas Power get its water from? Atlas Power's building design uses an air-cooled system. Water usage from Atlas Power is for facility use, drinking water, bathrooms only. Number 5, Commissioner O'Leary, what kind of tax revenues can expect for SABE in the MC TED? Answer, property tax collections will be based on the market value established by the Montana Department of Revenue and will reflect the development in place each year on January 1st. The assessed values are certified each year in August, assuming an assessed value of $10 million in year 1. As of January 1st, the property tax is a simple calculation below. Try to go through this as much as I can. Real property, buildings and land, we have a market value of $50 million, a tax rate of 0.9, a taxable value of $450,000. Mills assessed for the MC TED is $562.42. The property tax assessed is $253,089. Personal property, equipment, market value of $50 million, tax rate of 0.9, class 17 property, $450,000, mills assessed $562.42, property tax assessed $253,089. The total would be $506,178. Commissioner O'Leary, what will the tariff on the data centers will be from the PSC? Answered by representatives of Northwestern Energy. Answer, Northwestern Energy is in the process of developing 2 documents, one which relates to large load customers, i.e. those with a load of greater than 5 megawatts, and one which is a contractual agreement that outlines responsibilities, financial requirements. It is our intention to present both documents to the Montana Public Service Commission for approval. Once approved, the tariff will apply to all new large load customers, and the initial contract will serve as a template for the other large loads requests. Oh, just to re-clarify, that was answered by representatives of Northwestern Energy. Number 7, Ms. Bordeaux, Northwestern Energy imports 25% of energy from other states. Even with coal strip addition, the supply of power is less than what data centers have been promised. How can ratepayers be assured that rates will not increase? Again, answered by representatives of Northwestern Energy. Again, another calculation. Real property, buildings and land. Ms. Burns, I can skip this one or not? Is that part
Excuse me, Commissioner Morgan, members of council, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it seems that your pages are out of order, stapled out of order. That what you're going into now is the first example on the taxes. I gave 2 examples on taxes. One's with a $10 million first year value and a $50 million on the second year, knowing that a construction project of this size would take many years to actually come on board. So I was trying to reflect how that would grow over time. So I think you were just out of order, but the answer to that question is in green there, so you can go ahead and move ahead.
On mine, they're all in black.
Oh, I apologize. I made
okay.
them in different colors so you could tell. Yeah, so yes, the last page that looks like this with the bold at the top is the answer to that question.
Okay.
I apologize, excuse me.
That's okay. So regarding the importation of 25% of energy, there are a lot of variables depending on resource availability. In general, we are usually long from an energy perspective and continue to export, but there are days when the generation sources, wind, solar, thermal, etc., are unavailable or reduced, and we do not import. As we have added the Yellowstone plant, the Dave Gates facility, and other resources, we are more likely to be in an exporting mode. I know that this is a loose explanation, but that is reality. Sometimes we import, usually we export. The graph referenced electric generation on the Northwestern Energy's website depicts 1 month of activity at a time. The acquisition of the Avista portion of Colstrip provides energy that is necessary to serve our existing customers. As mentioned many times, that block of energy is being obtained free of charge on 1/1 of 2026. Northwestern Energy understands how important it is to protect our Montana customers from unnecessary costs. Generation from the Puget Sound Energy share of Colstrip plant is not needed right now to meet our Montana customers' energy demand. That's why we ensure that the cost to operate and maintain this share will not be included in the customer rates until it is needed to serve our customers. Our Montana utility is owned and operated by Northwestern Corporation, doing business as Northwestern Energy. In 2023, the Montana Public Service Commission approved a corporate restructuring that created strong protection for our Montana customers. Under the Commission's ring fencing requirements, our Montana customers are not responsible for any liabilities outside of Northwestern Energy. See MPSC docket 2022.06.064, the final order of 7854B. The Puget Sound Energy share of the Colstrip plant is being acquired by a subsidiary of our parent company, Northwestern Energy Group Incorporated, and will remain outside the utility's ring fencing. This means our Montana customers will not pay any costs associated to the share until it is needed to serve them. In short, there is no way for subsidization to occur under this structure. This resource will enable the company to serve new large loads initially. As other requests are received, whether from new large load customers or from existing large load customers requesting additional energy, we will apply the provisions in the large load tariff and associated contracts. This may mean that future large load customers may have to either provide their own generation or purchase energy from the market. That concludes the responses that I have written. I apologize for the misorder, but again, these will be posted onto the minutes, so everybody will have access to all of them as well. The other thing that I would mention is there is also a Montana TED board meeting this Friday as well, and that agenda will be published on the website if there's anybody that wants to attend it. I believe it's at noon, but that is another public opportunity for people to attend those meetings if they so choose to. I don't know if there's anything on this particular topic on that agenda, but I wanted the public to know that there is a meeting this Friday. Ms. Bordoon, the communication is yours, so I would just give you the floor if you have anything to add.
Thank you, Chair and County Commissioners, Chief Executive Gallagher, and Matt Enruth, County Attorney. I really appreciate getting those answers back. I think it provides a great foundation for people to know where they're operating from when we're talking about locating businesses in the tax increment districts. So I brought up, I'm going to address the energy part first, because I know that's what the county has the least amount of control about. But until those contracts are understood and ratepayers' possible liability in the future with those large load contracts are understood, I really hope that we would be very cautious about starting huge data centers because we haven't yet known if our ratepayers are protected until there's some either legal outcomes that provide ratepayers protection, or there's a very transparent process through the PSC regulation that protects residential ratepayers and other business owners, quite honestly. So that's my first point on that. And that was one reason why I wanted to bring up that gap in generation by Northwestern Energy, as is posted on their website, and the demand that, you know, currently in the month of December, there's a large generation gap between what Northwestern Energy is generating and what our demands are. And so the gap is where they go to market and to buy energy, and those market prices aren't things that we can control. Northwestern Energy doesn't control those prices either. So when if we get lumped into the other large load demands, there would be greater market prices, supposedly. The other thing I will point out that there was an article, and I plan to do a very nice letter to everyone, including some of the resources that I've been reading. One was a meeting, a presentation that Mike Cashel gave, and there was a slide in that presentation that I think was great, and all council members should see that slide. Not because it's I got you, but it's just more information from Northwestern Energy, straight from Northwestern Energy, about what they are presenting about the Atlas and the yet unnamed data center coming to Butte. And one of the things that it says right at the bottom of that slide is that Northwestern Energy's purchase of the coal strip shares from Avista and maybe Puget Sound as well, I'm not sure from that last presentation, but those coal strip shares, those are going to data centers with the plan of just supplying the energy for data centers from that source. We also have seen that Northwestern Energy is wanting to go around the Public Service Commission and use federal guidance rather than our state guidance. And so I would just point that out, that we've got a few moving parts in this deal, but we're still the people living in this town and county. So we just want to make sure that the contracts that we made, the promises that we make, are for the good of the people here. I have heard that data centers are good for businesses, you know, and I would like to know more about how they are good for businesses. I've been trying to understand that. One comment I received was that local businesses may be interested in having a data center close to be able to rack their cloud and do business. I would encourage business people who are interested in this to come forward and say how it would help them or not. From what I could read online, which is, you know, questionable sources, but some people who say they use cloud business contracts, rental contracts from data centers, that they do not need to be located close to the data center at all. Maybe that's only specific businesses. Maybe we have businesses that need to be close to a data center, actually physically close. But a lot of businesses that use data centers don't even need to be in the same state. So I just question that logic, and I would welcome further understanding of what businesses are attracted to be located near data centers. So that's energy, and then on the taxes. I think our tax increment districts, which I will continue to misname, I'm sorry, I know it's the Montana Connections TED district. I think they are amazing for our community. I have learned more about them recently. They brought us out of great dire situations in the 90s. We can be very thankful that we have these districts because they are an incredible attractant to businesses. I don't know if data centers really need the tax breaks. That's another point. I don't know. I don't know because I'm not in that business, but I would suspect there are other industries that are interested in our community that bring different jobs, more jobs, and the data centers might want to locate here anyway because, you know, But why do they need tax breaks, I guess is my question. If they are a viable business and they have government backing and, by God, Google backing, I just don't understand why would we be giving them tax breaks, just as a philosophical question. And then on Atlas and water. So Atlas's original build was for cryptocurrency generation, for cryptocurrency, which is a lower security type build. I'm curious to know if the build out for Atlas would be the more secure type building that SABE Data Centers is proposing, because on that slide, Mike Cashell's slide, it did indicate that Atlas might be more interested in getting into machine generated learning and AI learning rather than crypto as much. And so that might cause different construction. Again, don't know because I'm not a data center guru, but it's just a good question to ask as they move their plans forward. Thank you. That's all I have if you have any questions of me.
Thank you, Ms. Bordoon. Is Karen Burns still? Karen, I just, if I can just ask you a question. When we use the term tax breaks, can you explain, is there tax breaks going to SABE at this point, or is that, I guess, is that the correct term that you would use for a TIF district?
Thank you, Commissioner Morgan, members of council. No, I would not say tax break. So tax break usually refers to an abatement or something that's allowed through the Montana Code. So the Montana Code sets the tax rates. The tax rates for data centers was set by the Montana legislature at 0.9% and implemented in code and is enforced through the Department of Revenue. So that's not something that we have any control over necessarily, is what rate they're taxed at and the classification of their property. So if you look into the Montana Code, and I think we have an active link in our responses, it brings you to the Class 17 property. And so that is where that rate is established. Location within a tax increment financing area, a district, an economic development district that was created that implemented tax increment financing is not a tax break either. It allows us, as you've seen our presentations many times over the years now, to, once we establish that district, implement tax increment financing, we get to collect a portion of the taxes that would be paid anyway. So the tax rate applied to a data center in the district or outside the district is exactly the same. The only difference is that if they're in the district, we get to collect a portion of that, and then we get to use it for the purposes and plans that we had for that district. Or as we said in our answers, if it is the will of the body and the connections board, and we don't have projects to do a remittance agreement to send that tax revenue back to all the taxing jurisdictions, that is something that we could do. Just throwing it out there. Hope I answered that question.
Yep. Thank you very much. Commissioner O'Leary on the question.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I guess I had a couple questions. I think these are for Director Burns. At this point, SABE has not asked for any abatements, correct? And they have not indicated that they intend to?
Ms. Burns.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan, members of council, Commissioner O'Leary. No, there's been no abatements asked for.
Okay. And then I don't know if this is a question for you or for Ms. Hassler when she's here at a different point, but could you sort of describe how a remittance agreement would look like? Are we talking basically you're just take the MC TED out of the picture and all the money goes back to who it would have gone to if it was outside the TED, or how exactly would that work?
Ms. Burns.
Thank you, Commissioner Morgan, members of council, Commissioner O'Leary. Remittance agreements can work in a number of ways. They can be a one-time agreement that comes before the TED board and this body that says we want to remit a certain amount, like $1 million, let's just say. The TED board agrees, this body votes on it. and we remit back $1 million from our revenues that we've collected to all the taxing jurisdictions based on that mill card, on how our mills are assessed. And everything goes back to where it would have gone had we not existed. That's one way it can function. Another way it can function is it could be a long-standing agreement that goes into place over at the beginning of a project that says we're going to remit this much every year as a certain percentage of the increment collected or a certain amount of the increment collected. So it can be written in different ways, but the one single thing that's true of every remittance agreement is that all of the revenue has to go back to those taxing jurisdictions as it would have had we not existed. So there's no way to say, well, we want this much to go to this jurisdiction and this much to go to schools, and you don't get to do that. It goes directly how it would have gone had you not existed with that provision.
Follow-up, Commissioner O'Leary.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, then the portion that would have normally gone to the state's portion that normally would have been retained in the district would go back to the state, so we would lose access to that for the investment inside the TED.
Ms. Burns.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Morgan, members of council, Commissioner O'Leary. That is correct.
Okay, follow-up, Commissioner O'Leary.
In your responses here, you had a couple of the charts with estimations, $50 million and $10 million in year 1 and 2. Is that actually reflective of what we would kind of expect in year 1 and 2, or is that just kind of a ballpark estimation? I mean, obviously you don't know exactly what they're planning to do, but just wanted to clarify that.
Ms. Burns.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan, members of council, Commissioner O'Leary. That is correct. It was just a estimate that I just picked. I had no indication that this would be reflective of what we could expect in year 1 or year 2. I was just trying to be demonstrative of how it could work.
Thank you.
Okay, any other follow-up questions? Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Ms. Burdone, I just got a suggestion for you. I don't know if you had an opportunity to see the legislature had a subcommittee for the energy and technical, and it was about all this. I don't know if you had an opportunity to watch that. It was, I think, back in mid-November, and I would suggest that you take some time and watch it. It's on PBS station. They brought up some really interesting things that I wasn't aware of. You had mentioned Vista and Puget Sound. Apparently Northwestern Energy is going to take those powers over next month or something, and they're going to dedicate them just to large corporations. But one of the things they had mentioned, that there was a gentleman there from Utah that did an energy study, that Northwestern hired him for an energy study, and his study showed that Montana is a energy island. And one of the things he used as an example of back 5 years ago, 6 years ago, whatever it was, when we went into that polar freeze, and they maxed out on power. I mean, they were at the point that they were almost going to have to shut down corporations because they couldn't produce enough power for the demand. And we were buying power from out of state, but because we're an energy island, we only have limited resources to bring power in and out. And because we didn't have the resources to buy power from multiple places, one of the things we got stuck with during that polar plunge was we paid 10 times the price that other people around us, because they had the sources to get the power from other options. They said, and I don't remember the unit, might have been megawatts or whatever. Other places were paying $100. Montana was paying $1,000 per unit. So I'd suggest you watch that, and it was really, really interesting. And he said, the reason we're an energy island is because we don't have the resources to bring power in or out. And I know 3 and 4 of Colstrip is Puget Sound and Vista, and all that power is supposed to go to big corporations, but if they don't use it here, and we need it, are we going to be back in the same situation where we're buying it from limited resources? And so I would suggest you watch that and see what you get out of it, but there was some very interesting stuff on that I saw.
Thank you, Commissioner Callahan. I'll check it out. So is PBS on the Energy Commission?
Yes, the subcommittee was, I think it was Energy and Technology, and they talked about these. In fact, the company that was going to go out here at Silver Bow, one of their executive vice presidents spoke.
Okay.
And then they spoke about the one that's going to go in Browning. They mentioned things of water. Browning's a closed circuit, so once they're full, they don't need no more water. Where the one out here isn't a closed circuit, so they'll need so many gallons a day. And I was very interested on the differences between the types of these companies are and how they were operated. And the power thing was very interesting. You know, I thought we had lots of power that we exported. And apparently that wasn't Northwestern Energy's power. That was Vista's and Puget Sound's power. And when we needed the power, it cost the ratepayers big bucks, because he says we're limited on where, Montana's limited on where we can bring power in or bring it out, export it. And at that time, we needed more power, and we had very few places we could buy power from, so we paid top dollar for our power. So I think if you watch that, I think you'd get some real good information out of it.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think the director of the DEQ just made some comments about large load commitments in the state of Montana, specifically by Northwestern Energy, and I wonder if she is reflecting some of the same concerns. She was saying that currently our grid is not prepared to make these large load commitments, and I imagine it alludes to some of the dangers of being at capacity all the time and not having the ability to flux on that, I imagine. I can send a link to that article as well. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bordoon, and the commissioners on those questions and comments. What's the pleasure of the council on this communication? I believe the questions have been asked and answered. What would be the pleasure of the body? Commissioner O'Neill? Oh, Commissioner Thatcher?
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I think, as you stated, we have answered the questions that Ms. Bordoon had originally asked and have answered some follow-up questions. It would be my opinion that at this time we could place this on file, but I'd be anxious to see maybe what other commissioners say, because I'm good either way.
Okay, there's been a motion. Was that in the form of a motion, Commissioner Thatcher?
Yes.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded by Commissioner O'Neill to place communication 2025-546 on file. Is there anything on the question? Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make a substitute motion to hold it in abeyance. And my reasoning is to keep it on the public, on the agenda, so members of the public can come and comment if they so choose. So I'm also pleasure of the council, but that would be my reasoning if there's a second.
Okay, there's been a second motion made to hold communication 2025-546 in abeyance. On the question, Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I guess my only question to that would be, this is specifically regarding questions from Beyond the Boom. This isn't specifically talking about anything related to the data center, so I guess how does that work?
Good comment, Commissioner Thatcher. Yes, I mean, that's the challenge that you're going to run into is that, you know, as far as a communication goes, this came to us to ask specific questions. Those specific questions were answered, and so I don't know, you know, the opportunity for a member of the public to come up and speak on this would be on items, you know, addressed on the agenda, so there's no banter back and forth, you know, from this body. You know, as things, if things come back to this body, would be the time that you could have more public input based on those particular topics, I would think. But that would just be my opinion. That I don't know how what this mechanism would do to keep it held in abeyance. Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. And as I appreciate I've learned a lot from Ms. Bordoon's stuff that she's brought and all the questions and everything, but I feel like that maybe there should be another communication to follow, kind of being repetitive of what you said. And basically, I had no disrespect to that, but again, big shout out to Ms. Bordoon for bringing a lot of light to this thick head, so thank you.
Commissioner Healy.
I guess the only comment I'm going to make on that is that Sarah did come back with more questions, so what if she has more questions on the same line?
Commissioner Healy, she could very simply put in another communication to the council if she felt that it was needed, and or there's public input opportunities with public hearings that would be, brought forward as well. And so just, no different than what it was before. Chief Executive Gallagher.
Commissioner Morgan, and I think to the point of what we're talking about here and what was regular, as Mr. Everett came forward and he couldn't come to speak towards this. He was limited to do it during public comment. So, when saying leaving it open for the public, it really requires Ms. Bordoon to come and be that person asking all the questions of that through this communication. So it really doesn't open it up to the public to do a lot more. That's just my perspective on this. I think it was shown just at the beginning of the meeting because Mr. Everett it wasn't his communication, so he couldn't really come forward to speak on that.
Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I see no reason to kill it right now. Holding it in abeyance ain't gonna hurt nothing. We're taking a lot of this information. Questions are answered by Northwestern Energy, Public Service Commission, talking about the Atlas out there. Atlas has their own substation. There's a lot of moving parts in this. To just say we answered the questions and kill it, I think that's kind of not doing a favor to anybody. I think this has got to stay open. This is a subject everybody's talking about. I think keeping it on the agenda is going to keep it active, and I support the substitute motion. Thank you.
The only comment that I would have on that is it's nice being a commissioner to answer questions that are before us. And at this particular time, there's no proposal that's before us on this particular thing, so they're hard to answer if you don't know really what the details are that are before us. And if they choose to come back to this body, you would have that opportunity to do it. If that's the case, a general communication could be attached to every single agenda on anything that's in Butte, just to keep it open, which there's still opportunity for members of the public to speak on anything that's not on the agenda, even if they want to perk the ears of the commissioners to keep their ear to the ground on and just, be aware of it. So, to say there's no spot for the public to comment on this is, in my opinion, incorrect, because there's quite a few spots that they still could. Commissioner Callahan.
You're absolutely correct there, but we can't respond back to them. My personal thought is I'd much rather be able to respond back to them than just have them come talk to us and then we can't ask questions.
Commissioner Thatcher, then Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. That's a very good point, Commissioner Callahan, that we can't respond. But again, we can only respond to Ms. Bordoon right now. So even if any other member of the public wanted to come up, we can't respond to them either.
Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I feel like that our job when we get the communications is to fulfill what the communication is. What more are we going to get if we keep it on there? Truthfully, we keep it on for the rest of the year is fine, but also want to challenge the community too. If they want to get more information, I hope they do. They could also fill out another communication and keep the ball rolling. That'd be nice, but whatever you guys want to do, sounds good to me. Thank you.
So there is a motion on the floor to hold communication 2025-546 in abeyance. On the question, Commissioner Shea.
No, I was going to make a motion to call for the vote.
So there is a motion on the floor. If motion stands, we would take a vote on this motion to hold communication 2025-546 in abeyance. Is there anything on the question? Does everybody understand the motion that's before them? We're voting on the substitute motion to hold in abeyance. Communication 2025-546. Okay, would everyone please vote? Okay, would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
5 yea, 5 nay.
Motion fails. So we'll go to the next motion, which is to place communication 2025-546 on file. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
5 yea, 5 nay.
Motion fails. So we either make a substitute motion or we, no idea. What would be the pleasure of the council on it? I guess, you know, just to continue the debate on it is really, you know, the communication that's been before us is no different than any other communication that's been brought up, in that there was a question, they were answered, there were some follow-up questions, and they were answered. And again, you know, there's still going to be opportunity for people to comment or submit another communication for these. You know, in some of these questions could have been, you know, directly addressed by staff or a board, and or some could have been directly addressed with Northwestern Energy as well. So there's avenues for people to go through to get these answers without making them part of the council agenda. The other option too is that we are all elected to represent the people of our districts, and you know, if they want to talk to their commissioner, that is also another pathway for people to reach out to as well. So I guess I would just say that. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. You know, I think we're putting a lot of faith in Northwest Energy. They answered some of the questions, you know. They're planning on making a profit on this. We're worried about our ratepayers, you know. Whether we keep this or kill it, either way, there could be another communication. That's why I'm saying, what's the big hurry to just kick it off of the agenda and not do anything? I mean, we're here right now for a long time and tie vote, you know. This is just something I think we're putting a lot of faith in the people to answer the questions. I didn't answer any questions. I don't know if any of these other commissioners answered any questions. We're putting a lot of faith in somebody that answered the questions that I ain't sure I agree with all the answers. That's why I'm voting hold it.
And I guess the only comment that I would make on that is we have no power over Northwestern Energy and how they respond to it. I mean, a simple way that we could have responded to these was, that's outside the scope, and that's a Northwestern Energy response, and then just not provided any response on our response. So, I mean, I don't know if having this on there holds Northwestern's feet to the fire any more than it would anyway. Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I guess my suggestion would be, what would your recommendation be for, say we put this to bed tonight and have Ms. Bordeaux come up with a new communication where the public is allowed to speak as well? Does that work?
I guess Commissioner Callahan, just on the logistics of that, I don't know what you would do. Do you want John Q. Public to just enter a communication that would address any item that they'd want to? I mean, procedurally, there's things on the agenda that allow people the opportunity to come and speak on any item on the agenda or anything that's off the agenda, submit a communication through their commissioner, submit a communication on their own behalf. So, I mean, there's opportunities for people to get help on. I don't know. Commissioner Callahan.
Well, I guess my question is then, like Chief Executive Gallagher said, Mr. Barrett was asked to come up here and talk tonight, and if he was allowed to talk like Ms. Bourdon, we could ask him questions or answer some of his questions as well, but because he spoke at the beginning of the meeting, we cannot have conversation with him, so that's why I asked if there's a suggestion we can figure something out that,
I guess just in response to that, Mr. Barrett, I know, knows procedures, and if he wants to submit a communication as well, I mean, just like Ms. Bordoon did, he could very simply do that. I mean, by me not letting him speak at the beginning was the procedures and the procedures that we've always followed as a body to not let people speak unless it's their communication. And so that wasn't a new rule tonight that I enforced. That is just going off of normal procedures. And so, I mean, if that was the case, every communication on this agenda becomes a public hearing, and that's not our intent, right?
No.
So, I mean, that's just clarifying my stance on letting Mr. Barrett speak, at the beginning of the meeting. Chief Executive Gallagher.
Chairman Morgan, Commissioners, I think of it as the will of this body, we could submit a communication that gives updates on the data center, which would bring this into, so we could, as Butte-Silver Bow staff, bring a communication to bring updates to this, and we could submit a communication to do that, which would allow this to continue, and then doesn't put on, I'm not to say Ms. Bordoon to put it on her shoulders every time to be coming up with the questions to be submitting to keep this open. I think it would be an opportunity that we could open it up in here. People could come, public comment, and then there could be discussion in here, and we'd be given updates along the way as it's gone there. If it would be the will of this body, we could do that.
Sure. Any other? Commissioner Healy.
I just noticed Mr. Everett had his hand up, and I didn't know if he would be able to talk. That's all.
Commissioner Healy, are you calling on Mr. Barrett to speak? I don't know how it correlates to this communication, but
He had his hand up, to be fair.
okay, Commissioner Healy, are you calling Mr.
Yes.
Barrett to the podium?
I'm calling Mr. Barrett to the podium.
Mr. Barrett.
Thank you, Commissioner Healy, and thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. I appreciate your comment, and you did make the right call at the beginning, and I apologize for the awkwardness I created. And you did just say that I understood procedure, so I would like to speak to your procedure right now, if you don't mind. I'm not a parliamentarian, but I've been in enough of these meetings. You have the communication on the agenda with the recommendation that has been passed by this body and not been overturned by any subsequent action. You've put it up here twice. It failed in both cases. It would seem to me that the previous past position, which is to hold it in abeyance, holds until it's overturned. So I would at least present that as a possibility as an amateur parliamentarian.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. What is the pleasure of the council? That is who determines what the next step of this is. Commissioner O'Leary.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I was going to ask the county attorney for his opinion about this, but maybe you know the answer to this. We have now voted on both hold in abeyance and note and place on file. At this point, can we take action on this outside of those two motions? I guess I'm asking more of a question of you or the county attorney if he returns.
Commissioner O'Leary, I mean, you took action on it, but both motions failed, so no action was taken, correct? I mean, that's how I would interpret that rule. So there's nothing been determined. I mean, to me, another motion, all the motions on the floor, parliamentary-wise, have been denied. So now it goes for another motion to vote. If somebody would want to make another motion to particularly hold in abeyance, you could see if somebody flops and see where it goes. Commissioner Shea.
I believe somebody could technically make a motion to reconsider.
They'd have to be on the prevailing side, and there was no prevailing side.
It's a hung jury. We'll just talk about it next week.
I would say, you know, moving forward, just so we're not sitting here looking at each other for the rest of the night, I would say hold it in abeyance. It doesn't have any precedence, you know, going forward. It would be on the committee of the whole report next week as hold in abeyance. Any commissioner that has had a change in heart or wants to do something else with it next week could very simply segregate it out of the regular meeting and take action on that. So we'll continue, I mean, just as it's been on the agenda the last several weeks, continue to hold this communication in abeyance and leave it on the agenda. Unless you guys want to look at each other a little bit longer. Commissioner O'Neill? County Attorney Enruth, the question was asked if we can take action on the same motion, being that the motion was to place on file and to hold in abeyance, and I said really no action was done on it, but can a second motion of the same sort be made? County Attorney Enruth.
Chairman Morgan, Commissioners, correct. You can make the motion again because there wasn't a losing side that needs to, or excuse me, a winning side that needs to remake the motion. Because there's a tie, no action was taken. You can remake the motion.
Would someone like to make a motion? Commissioner O'Neill.
I'd like to make a motion that we keep communication 2025-46 on the agenda till sometime in January. Pick a date. So I changed my motion a little bit to mess with it, so we just keep it on there. And I want to date it to January, just to be difficult, to January 7th. How's that sound? Or let's go. No, it's not. No, it's not.
Motion dies a lack of second. Would anyone like to make a motion? Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a great learning experience for all of us. County Attorney Enruth, question about a motion to table the item. Is that an effective solution here that would essentially just suspend it where it's at?
County Attorney Enruth.
Commissioner Morgan, Chairman Morgan, Commissioner Shea, are you asking if the commission moves to table the motion that it suspends it where it is?
Commissioner Shea?
Kind of. I'm asking, I think, because that would be a different motion if we didn't want to make the same motion. If we made a motion to table it, that means we stop consideration of it, correct?
Chairman Morgan, Commissioner Shea, correct. But from the sounds of what everybody is talking about here, I suggest making the original motion to continue holding it in the committee of the whole until someone wants to either pull it off at the next regular meeting or make a different motion on it at that time, because then that would allow for continued public comment on Ms. Bourdain's communication and then also support the commissioners that were ready to place it on file today to allow them to make that motion again at that time. But for tonight's purposes, I suggest making the motion to continue holding it in the committee of the whole.
Commissioner Healy.
I'll make the motion to hold communication number 2025-546 in the committee of the whole.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded to hold communication 2025-546 in the committee of the whole. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
5 yea, 5 nay.
Motion fails. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Shea. You know, I guess I'm struggling a little bit with this because we get chastised if we don't follow procedure, and sometimes commissioners chastise this own body if we don't follow procedure. The specific communication is talking about the questions that Ms. Bordoon have presented from the Beyond the Boom. I would hope that Ms. Bordoon feels that staff, Northwestern Energy, and everybody has answered those to the best of our abilities sufficiently enough that maybe if she has more questions, she could come back and, like we've all discussed, and pose another communication. Same with Mr. Barrett. I struggle because we're going back and forth, and for some reason we don't want to follow the procedure that is the procedure. That is how it works. We are not allowed to talk about things that aren't specifically on the agenda. Like that's just how it works. And so I'm really struggling with that part. Additionally, I understand that this is a very contentious topic in our community, as it should be, and I think that we need to continue very much so having the conversation around this. And I'm very grateful to Ms. Bordoon and the information that she has brought light to, but we haven't heard from anybody else aside from Mr. Barrett tonight specifically regarding this communication. It has been only Ms. Bordoon. So in my mind, it doesn't make sense to continue to just hold this and retreat back to this every committee of the whole if there isn't going to be people coming up here to discuss it. So now, then I would like to make a motion to again place on file communication number 2025-546.
Second. Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded to place communication 2025-546 on file. Is there anything on the question? On the question, the only thing that I would present to this body to get past this part would be maybe a suggestion to hold this or add this communication to the suspense file until the first week of January or the first committee of the whole. That could allow a few things. It gets it off the agenda for a few weeks to let people start to digest what it's been digesting, and then it will come back and appear on the first committee of the whole meeting in January. That might be an olive branch to get us out of here before midnight tonight. That's the only thing I would say. On the question, Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. At this time, I'd make a motion to put communication 2025-546 in the suspense file until Wednesday, January 14th, 2026.
There's been a motion made and seconded. That was a substitute motion, Commissioner Fisher. There's a substitute motion to place communication 2025-546 in the suspense file until the January 14th committee of the whole meeting. That's been moved and seconded. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
7 yea, 3 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Moving on to communication 2025-576. James Olette, Safety and Health Coordinator, ADA Coordinator, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a public hearing for December 10th, 2025 for the purpose of considering adopting the City County of Butte-Silver Bow ADA self-evaluation and transition plan. We did have this public hearing tonight. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to place on file communication number 2025-576.
Thank you. There's been a motion made and seconded to place communication 2025-576 on file. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
10 yea, 0 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 5, communication 2025-581, Will O'Connor, Land Records Coordinator, requesting Council of Commissioners to approve Council Communication 2025-249, a request from Patty and Chris Solmonson to purchase land owned by Butte-Silver Bow, located adjacent to their property located at 17 Tullamore Street. We'll continue to hold this communication in abeyance pending the report back from the Land Sales Committee. Next item on tonight's agenda is any public comment on any public matter not on the agenda. Welcome to the council meeting. Please state your name and address for the record. There you go.
Mr. Chair, members of the council, Evan Barrett, 807 West Silver. I apologize, this is not on the agenda, and I'll be very brief about it. I think it's very important to starting to think about the constituents out there whose primary concern these days is about their power rates, their affordability generally, and their power rates as it applies to affordability. And the question of what's going to happen with all these major things in power is a serious, serious question. And I urge you all to pay close attention to what's going on between Northwestern Energy and the Public Service Commission, the Federal Energy Commission as well, FERC, that's going on. Northwestern Energy appears to be becoming more and more opaque. They're not transparent about what's going on. They give answers, but they, for example, they succeeded in getting the Public Service Commission to allow them to not have information released to the public that their rates are going to be dependent upon. Okay, well, it's trade secrets. Well, we all have trade secrets, but it's really questionable. Maybe it's going to end up in court over that, but they're opaque in that sense. They're an out-of-state corporation that's trying to make money in Montana. That's legit, but they don't want us to know how it's going to work. So PSC went along with them there. Also, they just took 370 megawatts from the coal strip sale, and they placed it with a subsidiary of theirs that is not to be regulated by the Public Service Commission. Okay? And that's in front of FERC. So they're saying, no, you can't regulate us on this. And so we got the PSC now is fighting and telling FERC to ignore that because they think they ought to be involved. There's a lot of bad stuff going on, it seems to me, on rate making in Montana that could negatively impact every citizen of Butte and every citizen of Montana, at least those that are customers, electric customers of Northwestern Energy. So this will be making more stories and more headlines. Don't always believe what you see, but let's all pay some close attention to that. I am a member of a group called Butte Watchdogs for Social and Environmental Justice. We are a participant in a lawsuit asking the Public Service Commission to create a tariff on this whole idea of the energy as it's going to relate to data centers. I would urge the county attorney, chief executive, and all of you to give consideration to joining as a party to that lawsuit on behalf of the citizens of Butte, to make sure that a tariff is set up specifically to protect the citizens from this vagueness and opaqueness that's going on, and make sure it doesn't ever get transferred. Any mistakes made on rates, any mistakes ever made by one of these companies don't end up affecting the rates of the citizens. So I would urge you to give consideration to that, and maybe we'll provide a communication to the council to that effect as well. But keep your eye on the ball on this stuff. It doesn't smell right to me.
Thank you. Any other member of the public like to speak on any item not on tonight's agenda? Okay. Seeing none, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.